Hey guys, Ian here. So I'm sure many of you are probably feeling somewhat frustrated being quarantined all day, having nothing to do and being socially distant from everyone. That said, if you're not feeling any negative effects from the quarantine, then this video isn't really going to be very helpful for you. Now, thankfully, I've been practicing social distancing for a few years now, so I have quite a bit of experience on the subject. Joking aside, I've actually been working from home in my studio apartment for a long time now, and I felt many of the same things you might be feeling right now. I imagine the way things are, you probably feel like you have a lack of control over the situation. Not only do you feel like you're doing the same thing every day, but you feel a little cut off from the rest of the world. Can't hang out with friends, can't go to the movies or restaurants, can't go to happy hours, nothing. You start to feel kind of irritable and restless. Stress builds up and you feel exhausted even though you're not really doing anything. That all said, I don't know if you've seen the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, but I think the message in that film really relates to how people are feeling right now. Essentially, the movie is about a man who's marooned on an island after his plane crashes in the ocean, far away from home, his girlfriend, and any human contact. He is tested mentally, physically, and emotionally in order to survive, and he does all this for 4 years. I know we're not in quite the same situation, but I think there are a lot of strong parallels psychologically speaking. Now, the main character in this movie is named Chuck, and he's played by Tom Hanks. He works as a FedEx delivery man and is a stickler for being on time. That said, his life gets shaken up when his plane crashes and he finds himself completely isolated on an island. He quickly learns that his skills from his old life is not going to help him in his new life of isolation. At first, he gets frustrated when he can't catch a fish or start a fire. Stress builds up, he starts to feel irritable and restless and just flat out miserable. At first, he starts to feel more and more lost and not sure of what to do. The only person he even talks to is a volleyball he decided to call Wilson, and his only hope is clinging on to the thought of one day being able to return to his girlfriend. Now, throughout the course of the movie, Chuck gradually starts to adapt. He even comes to realize while his new life on the island isn't perfect, it's not as bad as he once thought. With that all said, there are actually 4 tips from the movie that'll help you thrive during this period of social distancing. The first one is to keep your mind stimulated and keep your hands busy as much as possible. The worst thing about social distancing during the quarantine is the sense of boredom you're probably feeling. Every day feels the same as the last day. Now, throughout the movie, Chuck finds that he has a lot more free time than he once did, but isn't really sure what to do with all of it. But if you can keep your mind stimulated and your hands busy in any way that you can, you'll start to feel a whole lot better. Try doing a puzzle or pick up crocheting while you're watching Netflix. For example, I keep myself busy by making this YouTube video you're watching right now. I also use my VR headset, which allows me to go into the virtual world to play games and even interact with other people. I might even go for a run or do my bodyweight workout. Either way, anytime I start to feel bored or restless, I know I need to stop laying around and need to start doing something. Otherwise, that's when the self-destructive habits start to set in. The second tip doesn't relate to the movie as much, but it's something I personally rely on. Do not watch any TV, computer, or phone screens while you're eating, especially if you're isolated. I imagine many people are starting to gain weight during this quarantine, and it's because they don't feel as mentally stimulated as they once did. Instead, you need to practice what I like to call eating meditation. This is when you turn off the screens, put your phone down, and instead focus on the tastes and flavors of what you're eating. This alone goes a long way with helping you feel more content and mentally stimulated overall. Tip number 3, reframe everything as a positive. When everything around you starts falling apart, it's really easy to fall into a negative mindset. Think of it like being in the eye of a hurricane. The eye of a hurricane is actually the calmest place because the strong winds that surround it are never able to reach the center. In this situation, that center is you. Yes, everything around you is falling apart right now, but if you're able to reframe everything as a positive, then you'll start to feel more calm on the inside. To give an example on reframing the quarantine as a positive, I'm now seeing a lot more families going for walks outside together. Friends are being more connected than they ever were before, and the problems our society has been ignoring for a long time are finally being taken seriously. Yes, there are a lot of bad things we could be thinking about right now, especially if someone you know is sick or has passed away, but you know they wouldn't want you to ever feel bad. Instead, try to balance yourself by reframing your negative thoughts as positive ones. If you can do this for 30 minutes, I can almost guarantee you'll start to feel better almost immediately. And finally, for tip number 4, be thankful for what you do have. As I mentioned earlier, in the movie, Chuck had been involved in a deadly plane crash and had been socially isolated on an island for up to 4 years. When he finally was able to make it back, he found out that his wife had remarried and that everybody had moved on for the most part. He pretty much lost everything he once had. Even so, he was grateful just to be back and thankful that he could even have ice in his cup again. Right now we have Netflix, video games, social media, and pretty much an endless supply of food. As long as we are smart and careful, we should be able to ride this quarantine out relatively smoothly. Now, I know not everyone is as fortunate right now, especially with unemployment, but the technology we do have is pretty resilient. Our society will go back to normal eventually, and we might even find that certain things are better off afterwards than they were before. That all said, I think once this quarantine is over, we'll find that we have a much greater appreciation for the things in our life. History has a unique way of bringing people together during dark times, and it's during those dark times that you start to notice the people in your life who shine brightest. And also that at the end of it all, everything will be okay. Now, if you feel like this video helped you out, feel free to drop a like and consider subscribing, because I have some pretty good videos coming out in the near future. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.
Remember, only you can prevent the coronavirus.